Hey everyone, James Vincent here. Salon Ministries, ministry from behind that chair for 45 years. How about that? So anyway, I was walking today and this thought came to me. I started thinking about being ashamed at his return or his coming, right? And a lot of different thoughts came through my head. But Revelation 16:15 states this, right? Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he who watches and keeps his garments, least he walk naked, and they see his shame. Right? So the verse is a warning to be prepared and alert for Jesus' return. The imagery of coming like a thief is used throughout the New Testament to call people to be ready, right? So being ready, that's the key, right? Being ready. Verse also refers to spiritual nakedness, which can lead to shame. It represents a lack of preparedness and a lack of honoring God. So, you think about being ashamed that it's coming. Everybody gets caught up in Revelation, right? And that's in Revelation 2, where that verse came from. Everybody wants to know the time, the date when Jesus is going to come back, and they need to know, and it's such a big thing. I mean, there's so many sites to talk about Revelation, and usually the first book somebody reads when they're a Christian, or they become a Christian, or even if they aren't a Christian, is Revelation, right? Everybody wants to know what's going to happen at the end, but yet they don't want to read the first 65 books, right? They want to go right to the end of the book. Some people do that all the time, even reading novels, right? They want to get to the back to see how it ends. So it's not about how it ends; it's about what happens in between all that, right? That preparedness in between, that knowing the journey, right? Not just the end, but we get caught up in that, and to think that you could be ashamed, right? I mean, you could be ashamed. I mean, imagine you're sitting in here on the internet right now, right? But what if I'm sitting there, I'm looking at porn, right? And all of a sudden Jesus comes through the sky. How are you going to feel, right? Or whatever sin you might have, right? Even in the middle of it, and all of a sudden Jesus comes through the sky. So it's not about the end. It's about being prepared your whole life. It doesn't, if you're walking with Jesus all the time, you're praying, you're walking with God, He's speaking to you, you're speaking to Him. You're not concerned with His coming, because guess what? You're already with Him. You're already communicating to Him. You're already, connected to Him. So almost when He busts through the sky, you'll be like, oh, Jesus, yeah. It won't be a big, oh, Jesus, whoa, right? So again, it's a matter of being prepared. It's a matter of walking in holiness every day and all the time, as much as that's possible. I mean, you can't be perfect. I know that. But you can be prepared, right? So people are like, are you a pre-trib? Are you a mid-trib? Are you a post-trib? Or, what trib are you? You and I think, well, I read the trib, but that's a joke. So it's unimportant. It's totally irrelevant almost if you're walking with Jesus and you're prepared. You don't have to worry about the end, right? You're already walking with God. You already know His voice. You're living in His presence. So it's really almost unimportant that you are to need to be concerned when he comes. People say, well, you might not know when He's coming, but you can know the season. And truthfully, I think we are in the season. It seems like we are in the season, but again, people probably thought that for the last 2,000 years too. Heck, they thought when Jesus just left, they were in the season. And again, I don't know how old you are. I'm almost 70. I mean, how much time do I got left? I'm in the last days, no matter how I look at it. So you just need to be prepared. You need to know. You need to be standing on the Word. You need to be spending time in the Word. I think of watching the State of the Union message last night, right? Or not State of the Union, whatever it was last night. And of course, the Republicans on one side, Democrats on the other. The Democrats are just so aghast at everything that Donald Trump would say or do or whatever. But it almost reminded me of again, the end times, one side, yeah, the other side, whoa, whoa. You could see every time they said something, they put their heads down. They just didn't want to hear what he had to say. And, it's kind of like what it will be in the last days too, because people still won't want to hear what God has to say. They'll still hide from God. Crazy as that sounds, yeah. But that's the way it rolls. That's the way it goes down. You have this time. You have on this side to make your decision for Jesus. When it comes to the end, there's no more time. Time runs out. It just happened to my cousin recently. And I'm not judging, but I know he had many chances to believe Jesus. But I don't know if he ever did. It didn't appear. So when he was in the ICU, I happened to go in there, and I was in there by myself with him. And he only had a certain amount of days to live. They were going to pull the plug because he only could go so far. He had to start to breathe on his own, and he wasn't doing it. And after 10 days, if you're still not breathing on your own, you start brain damage and everything else starts to happen. Well, I walked up to him. I whispered in his ear, and I had spoken to him many times through the years. I said, believe Jesus, And his mouth was going like this. Like he wanted to talk. He wanted to say something. I'm not sure what he wanted to say. Probably wanted to say what happened to me, but there's nothing else I could say to him except believe Jesus. And I did about 5 times in his ear. Because, that's it. Time's almost up. So I'm hoping that he received that. I won't know until the other side. So anyway, my point again is, you have time. You have time now. You have time while you're alive. And nobody knows how much time they have. I do hair for a living, right? 45 years. Every day I'm talking to somebody dying, got cancer, some tragic thing happened to them. I mean, it's boom. Nobody knows. So be prepared, right? You need to be prepared. Prepared. Revelation 16 says the 7th angel pours out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice comes from the throne of heaven saying, it is done. And what I'm saying is, you only got so much time, and then it is done. Yeah. I don't think this point could be, expressed enough. It's so important, especially now that I'm older. I see all the tragedy that goes around me, and all the sickness and death that is on every side. You only have a certain period of time. You can't play around. You've got to make a commitment to Jesus at some point. You have to say, hey, I surrender. And a lot of people believe Jesus. A lot of people go to church, and they're faithful to going to church and everything else. But they haven't surrendered their life. They really don't surrender their life. They just go to church. They like all the good stuff Jesus stands for, but they're not in surrender. They haven't given up and become born again. I know that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, but that's how it works. Most people don't want to surrender their life, and if they do, they'll surrender partial parts of their life, but not their whole life. Jesus wants your whole life. He wants you changed from the inside out. He wants you to get at least in the process. And that comes from surrendering. Saying, hey, I tried everything. I want some peace. I want some rest. And Jesus promises both those things if you surrender to him. And it's not like, anything you surrender to him is like some horrible thing. It's not. And, it changes you. It's going to be a whole different way of life. And that's, I think, where a problem lies with a lot of people. I think sometimes they're really honest. They realize that if they come to Jesus, they realize if they surrender, because they've heard it, they realize that, guess what? I have to change my life. I have not. And a lot of people don't want their life changed. They like their life. They're happy with their life. But nonetheless, that's how it is. Yeah, whoever saves his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for Jesus' sake will save it. There's more to life than just the external things that we touch and smell and see, you know, money and love and sex and all that stuff, that's all plays a part on this side, but that's not what it's about, that's not gonna, you're not gonna be able to bring any of that with you to the other side. That's just kind of carnal stuff. Jesus is trying to get you out of that eros state and into an agape state, as they say, from a selfishness to a selflessness, which is what Jesus wants. He wants you to be selfless like he was. And that's a hard one to swallow, because people are selfish. They don't want to be selfless, right? They like their life. They don't want to. I want everything I can get. Okay, but that's not the gospel, right? It's just not. You got to surrender. You got to give up. You got to let God into your life. You got to let Him direct your path. You got to let Him transform you over the years. And then, and if He has something specifically for you, which He usually does, you'll find that. You'll find that from being on the path of holiness, of walking in truth, of letting Him change you progressively over time. That's the real gospel. A lot of times people say, "Oh, well, I heard that, God will, He has a plan for your life." I hear that a lot. Hey, God has a plan for your life. Don't you want the plan? And and if you don't realize that, you think the plan is just you give Jesus your life, then He gives you His new plan, then you're successful all of a sudden. And again, still thinking carnally, but his what he gives in return is transformation into being like Him, because that's what it says. We want to be created. We want to be made in His image. And His image is selflessness, holiness, truth, love. Reaching out to other people. You start to forget more about you and more about Him. Less about you, more about Him, and then you get His perspective on things, and your lives change. What you thought was important, carnality and all that stuff goes away. And now you see things from a different point of view. His view, which normally isn't our view. At least, like the Bible says, His ways aren't our ways. I always said, what, if you think you're right most of the time, you're probably not. Just think the opposite. That's probably the truth. So anyway, these are my thoughts today. It comes like a thief. You need to be prepared. And again, if you are prepared and you walk it, it doesn't matter when He comes or not comes. You don't even thinking about it, because you're in His will, doing whatever God has called you to do and be. Your concern is not His return. Your concern will be more about finishing your course. So anyway, I hope that helps somebody out there. Helps me. Anyway, James Vincent. We'll see you again. Be blessed. Be prepared.